Welcome to another edition of Anglican Unscripted. This is episode 199. In truth, there's probably about 300 episodes out there, just because we've had to re-record. Maybe there's 400, but this is 199, the completed episode. I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger. And today, September 18th, 2015.
Okay, we normally start the show with personal updates. I have none. My life is stress-free. We're in the condo. I don't have all the furniture yet. You see this weird red chair came with the condo. Hopefully we'll get our stuff packed in here in the next couple of weeks, and we can return to the normal Anglican studio. That may take a little while, as we have to have it painted and had some new flooring installed. George, it seems like everything's going okay over there.
Well, I have been receiving death threats from bearded men with strange hats, who my comparison of the Anglican world to Orthodoxy has not gone down well in some quarters.
Well, there's a good point there. We'll talk about that later. The Orthodox do not want to be compared to the Anglicans, and they have good reason not to. Personal lives, we're doing well. And let's move on to the news. We broke in our last episode the story of a Primates gathering being called by the Archbishop of Canterbury. And we were real specific in saying a meeting was not called, an instrument of unity was not called, but they called for a gathering. And that's our words. They kind of missed it, and they said it's a meeting of the Primates, not a Primates meeting. And you heard back from Lambeth Palace saying you need to not make a big deal out of this. Why are they doing that?
Well, they would neither confirm nor deny, but said you shouldn't put too much emphasis on the semantics. In other words, a meeting of primates is a small m, capital P. A primates meeting, capital P, capital M, is a formal legal instrument of unity. Last episode, we went into the details between the differences. But Lambeth Palace's press officer is telling us that, well, I just drop that, fellas. Just don't go with that. But however, what we're hearing from conservative leaders is that distinction is vitally important to them. Mm-hmm. So what do we have? Do we have the press office not being fully in tune with their master's mind? Won't be the first time.
No.
Or is this a very cunning plot to sort of get everybody on board by calling it different things? Well, we're going to tell the Episcopal Church this is a surprise party.
That's right.
And we're going to tell the Africans this is a party to talk about how evil the Episcopal Church is. In other words, we haven't seen the letters. We don't know if everybody got the same letter with a different name at the top. Be interesting to see how this unfolds.
Yeah, we've not heard a lot of rumors yet about the letters. The letters have not been leaked. We don't know if there's 37 different written letters. So all that hopefully will come out one day as we learn. Now, and I was telling George, I've not been this excited since Dar es Salaam, because we're looking for, both George and I hope, at the end of the day, that we have a functioning Anglican communion, that we would have a repentant church, that we would once again be a church where people can find a loving relationship with Jesus Christ, and that we can grow the church and grow in fellowship. We want it to work, and that is our desire. And here is an opportunity in our eyes for this to happen. Whether or not it happens, we'll know in a couple weeks. Now, a question I had when I read the press release: is there a deadline, George, for the RSVPs?
Well, we've asked Lambeth Palace several questions, and we've spoken to a number of global leaders. But because we don't know if it's the same letter, we can't say that everybody was asked to respond by a certain date. Mm-hmm. Lambeth Palace has declined to speak to the content of the letters, saying that they're private communications. But what we have been able to sort of get in the second-tier details are that the actual location of the meeting in Canterbury has not been decided. I asked the Lambeth Palace, well, it doesn't say anything about the Anglican Consultative Council or Josiah Adawu Farone, the ACC Secretary General. Why is he absent from all this? And a number of liberal commentators, Martin Percy, the Dean of Christ Church at Oxford, for example, have said, why is the ACC being cut out of all of this?
Mm-hmm.
And Lambeth Palace's response is, well, you have to ask the ACC. Now, that's not a yes, it's not a no, but I'm going to write to them and say, well, why is Kevin Carlson not mentioned in the Primates meeting letter? And if their response is, you have to ask Kevin Carlson, what does that tell me?
A lot.
What does this mean? Well, part of the problem over the past has been the disdain the ACC has been held in by large portions of the communion. It's not viewed as being fair. It's not viewed as being honorable or even honest. It's viewed as being in the pocket of Western liberals, financial pocket, and
which was borne out in Jamaica
yes.
on video. So
I mean, and well, that was the culmination of a long process.
Yes.
I mean, but we got it on tape in Jamaica.
Yeah.
So Justin Welby is not been using the ACC to put this meeting together, and in fact, he's cut them out of the process, which raises the question: who's he talking to? He's not talking to GAFCON in planning this meeting. He's not talking to the Episcopal Church or the liberal provinces, Brazil, Wales, Scotland. Who is he talking to, Kevin?
Well, I'm sorry, you caught me off guard, but I'd say the Global South.
That's about all that's left.
It didn't take too long. I had to 4 fingers, Global South.
Well, unless it's Bangladesh,
yeah,
it's got to be the Global South.
It's got to be the Global South. And I think it makes sense because they never joined GAFCON en masse. They've never been big protesters of the communion, just the Episcopal Church. So working with the Global South and forming this meeting of the primates would make sense, involving Bishop Munir-Nice and others.
Ian Ernest.
But we don't have any confirmation. This is a best guess from Kevin and George, which according to some people is just golden. We guess right. According to other people, we are Satan's spawn and we never guess right. So you'll have to, somewhere in between there, figure out if we're guessing correctly or whatnot. Now, the second question, I've got 38, 39 emails going, are we going to attend? Well, primates meetings are different than like a Lambeth conference and stuff like that. They don't really have official press credentials they hand out. You kind of just show up and hope for the best. When we went to Dar es Salaam, to the White Sands Hotel on the sea, what sea is that off of?
Indian Ocean.
Indian Ocean. We didn't get to see the primates very much. The press was sequestered. I got to meet people from the BBC, Reuters, AP, Church of England News, that was you, all these different people from different organizations, and we just sat at the hotel outside cafe bar drinking Diet Cokes, waiting for news to occur. And then we got to take the day trip to Zanzibar with the primates. It's really not a place you're going to go and get a lot of information other than the press releases they give you, or if there's a perp walk, you might catch that. But it's not.
Yes and no.
Yeah.
I mean, you remember, Kevin, in Dar es Salaam, after the first night or so, some of the primates would come out and sit with us and the reporters, and all of this was off the record.
Yes.
I mean, people weren't quoted, but every single primates meeting, the primates get sick of each other, okay? And they just, some of them are not pleasant people to hang out with, whereas you and I are jovial and we pay for your drink.
We will pay for the drinks.
And so in Dar es Salaam and Alexandria and in other places, in Dromontine in Northern Ireland, I went to that one, you do a great deal of behind-the-scenes talking. Mm-hmm. And because it's a work in process, you don't really violate confidence by saying, well, today, this is what the conservatives want to do, and let's hope we surprised Frank Griswold, and he doesn't listen to our broadcast and hear what the plans are. In other words, it unfolds, but you sort of get a feel of how these people are interacting with each other. Well, this first came out in 2003. Mm-hmm. In 2003, they had the emergency primates meeting in London, and I was talking to a primate in a pub, and one of the things he said is, The first time this ever happened, but we had communion, and Peter Akinola refused to receive communion with Frank Griswold. And I said, "Is that true? I mean, can I run with this?" He said, "Yeah, but I didn't tell you." So I ran with the story, and I was crucified by some other people who said, "Oh, this is impossible, can't happen. It means they're no longer in communion." Well, it happened. It was true. It was an exclusive. We went forward, and now that's the normal way of doing things. But that's how you pick up news. You have to listen, not to what the bishop's opinions are,
Right.
but as to what the facts are and how these stories unfold.
And it's surprising because a lot of times the Archbishop doesn't even know this is newsworthy. It just comes up in conversation, and we're like, people need to know this. Are you sure? Yes, people do need to know that not everybody's taking communion. Oh, well, okay, all right, if you think so. Because
Like in Dar es Salaam in
yeah,
2007,
yeah.
one of the things we discovered was that Rowan Williams, who I have to tell you is the cleverest Archbishop of Canterbury I've ever
In
had
the
to
last
work.
generation, he's the cleverest. Absolutely. Yeah.
Cleverest, because Rowan Williams would leak to conservatives. He would leak and tell us things to have it get out there, so that then he could walk away and say, "Oh, no, 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 no." If the response was too bad, he could dismiss it. But in other words, he was excellent at on that level. Sort of someone who spent his life in
Well,
university commons
yeah.
rooms
Well,
had
it's
that inner backbiting down perfectly.
you
That
try it. You just put out little trial balloons, little test balloons to see what the reaction is from the public. Um, Ooh, we're going to hold tech accountable. Ooh, that went over really well. We'll continue with that, that type of thing. Ooh, we're going to let tech go and continue as they were. That didn't go so well. And Rowan, was really good at holding up his finger and seeing which way the wind was blowing,
and
up to the point of Rowanism. I
mhm.
mean, if it he conventionally understood that a communion is just the sum of its parts, and there can be broken parts in the sum.
And the other thing not to forget is if they bring their wives.
Yes.
Archbishop wives are wonderful sources of information because their husbands tell them everything. And then the wives are like, "We gotta tell somebody this." And who are they going to tell? Well, their friends back home really couldn't care less about what he said or she said,
No.
but man, you got these guys hanging on to your every word. And so these are wonderful opportunities not only to report the news as it's going on right now, but to take the stock and measure of each of these
Hmm.
people.
Yeah.
For instance, how did Drexel Gomez, Archbishop of the West Indies, become such a commanding figure within the primate circle? Is it because he's the Archbishop of the Bahamas and Jamaica? No. But because of his personal standing and character and the ability that he had to get other people to see his point of view, he was a natural leader. You don't get that information by reading these guys' press releases. You have to take the stock and the measure of the man.
Mm.
And this meeting in January is the first real opportunity since the 2008 Lambeth conference, really, to see these guys in interaction and see how they fall apart. In other words, Peter Akinola and Henry Arambi are different men than Nicholas Oko and Stanley Intigali.
Mm.
They hold different places within the conservative firmament.
Yeah, and we mentioned that before that the leadership of GAFCON is completely different than the people who started GAFCON. We've gone through. We have a whole new generation of primates leading GAFCON now. One of the things that's interesting is um, the Archbishop put up the idea that they could talk about the architecture and how the Anglican Communion works. They had a discussion. The press people talked to the Guardian and talked to the London Times, and just a machination of different stories. It gets to me to think that Archbishop Welby thinks the best thing we can do now is to have a reboot. Unplug the computer from the wall, count to 10, plug it back in, and see if that fixes everything. And I'm not sure a reboot's going to help if we are not a church in desire of reconciliation. You and I have talked about the difference between conciliation, which was suggested for John Bruno, versus reconciliation, which is the Christian model. can we have a church that doesn't operate with the Christian model?
No, we can't. And this is the argument that our Orthodox critics, capital O Orthodox, have said,
Yes.
where one of the responses has been, well, we'll form something like the Orthodox Fraternity.
Well, this is what you suggested in our last episode. You said, Kevin, a best case scenario is they turn out like the Orthodox, where they all have kind of a love for patriarch, but there's no real super duper communion going on.
And the United States will serve as the Ukraine, the place where you can have rivaling, dueling orthodoxies that hate each other's guts. Well, our Orthodox critics have conceded, yes, the Russian and Ukrainian Orthodox hate each other's guts, but they believe the same things. They have a common doctrine. They just can't stand each other. The Anglican world, we can't stand each other, just like the Orthodox, but we don't have a common doctrine.
No, we don't. And that is the bigger issue here is we don't have a pope. Good. I don't want a pope. We don't have a other than when I ask people what are the documents of the Anglican Church, they'll say, well, the prayer book. That's our teaching. And I say, well, I'm looking at the Episcopal Church, and they're not following the prayer book.
That's not what Justin Welby said in his letter.
That is
Say,
not.
Here's if you're conservative, if I were an Episcopal presiding bishop, which is never going to happen, by the way, we can take that part out.
No, it's good. It sticks. I agree.
Well, I
I'll
don't want you to agree,
I'll never be in clergy, and you'll never be presiding bishop. The church is better for it.
Justin Welby said is that our commonality is formed upon Scripture and the revelation of Jesus Christ through His Word. And every African, be they GAFCON or the Global South, Asians, and so on and so forth, all would say that is an unremarkable statement. It's only in the West, in the Episcopal Church, and in Europe that the Bible does not have the place it does in Africa. And Justin Welby, by holding up Scripture, is the determining factor in how we understand and live with each other. That shades and signals a particular course of action. Now, he may just be blowing smoke and trying to say all the right things to get the Africans to sit down at the table, but that in Anglican speak, is a very conservative statement.
Okay. Let's answer the second most asked question since our last episode. Are we going to go? We're going to try and go. But we can only go if we can raise money to go. And the sooner we have the money to go, the sooner we can buy plane tickets. Right now, if we go, and if we can bunk with Peter Old, this trip is almost free.
He has 2 small children already. I think 2 more wouldn't be much of a strain.
No, he's got the garage. He can sleep in the garage. So we need to raise money ASAP for this, because we need to make quick decisions when it's announced, where it's announced, and stuff like that. So if you could go to AnglicanInc.com/donate and give us copious amounts of hard-earned money. Please discern how much you need to give. Don't just write a check for $1,000 unless you can afford it. We need to raise money to go. The sooner we can buy tickets, the cheaper it'll be. George and I are always mindful of the amount of money we raise, and we are not eager to spend it either. That's it for this week's episode, George. Catch you on Monday. You want to do another one? This is kind of fun, and it will be 200. What a great gift it would be for our 200th episode to say we raised the money in 1 week for our trip to England. Well, whatever. So,
didn't we say it's in the south of France, Kevin? That we're going?
That's right. We went to a French island somewhere, huh?
Tahiti was.
Yeah, something like that. I'm Kevin Carlson,
and I'm George Conger, and you've been watching episode 199 of Anglican Unscripted.